Hello, welcome to the Morning Serve, brought to you by Emirates. I'm Nick McArdle. Casey Dellacqua joining us today. Case, Super Saturday, 93,000 through the gates last year. This just keeps getting bigger.
Certainly does, and oh my gosh, I feel so short next to you, Nick. But yes, you're right. It has been an incredible tournament already. Day sessions, night sessions have been packed out. People coming to watch amazing tennis, enjoy the atmosphere, and just be at the Australian Open. It's quite the event, isn't it?
It is quite the festival of tennis. Let's have a look at what is coming your way today on the Morning Serve. We're going to talk some crowd behaviour. That's under the microscope. Public enemy number one, Danielle Collins, making friends and influencing people at Melbourne Park. Jannik and Alex Minaur also in focus today. Okay, so let's start with crowd behaviour.
From Great Britain, Jack Draper.
So do you look at that and think to yourself, well, the crowd has been overstepping the mark?
Well, look, I've been walking around the courts and I've also been commentating and doing my fair share. Look, I think 99% of the crowds have actually been really, really good. And when most Aussies come to a sporting event, they come to cheer on whoever they're, coming to support. So I think on the whole, the crowds have been okay. And obviously, of course, we've seen, a fair few matches where maybe that hasn't been the case. But I think generally the crowds have been okay.
Anybody who watches the Grand Slams, I think they associate perhaps the US Open with a bit of rowdiness. Can you remember that level of rowdiness here at the Australian Open, or is there something different this year?
Oh, look, to be honest, Nick, I've played a fair few Australian Opens where the crowd have been pretty rowdy. I mean, I've played on Rod Laver with 15,000 people in there.
But respectful as well.
Yeah, always respectful. And I think, the thing is, every crowd at every major is very different. In Australia, it feels like they're very patriotic. They come to support often who that maybe from their country or something like that. Wimbledon's very proper and, very different. US Open's quite rowdy and the French love their tennis. So it's very different at every major. But I think on the whole, look, I think most of the people come to the tennis to enjoy the tennis.
Now, we'll talk a bit of Danielle Collins in just a moment, but she and Jack Draper both kind of played up to the crowd, almost like, fueled the situation. If you're a foreign player coming here, is it best just to, keep a low profile and just cop it and move on?
Well, I think it depends on your personality, right? I think if you can engage with the crowd and maybe they're not on your side and you can deal with that as a player, then go for it. But I think if you are a player that perhaps, maybe doesn't interact with the crowd, I think I didn't like engaging with the crowd a heap when I played. I think everyone is quite different, but I think as an Australian, you have to use the crowd to your favour.
Is there a personality type that perhaps gets a kick out of that crowd behaviour and can use it to, even if the crowd's not with them, can use it to
Yes.
fuel their game?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've seen that particularly, probably mostly with Danielle Collins in terms of the crowd were not on her side and she was very much, she was engaging with the crowd to a very high level, but she's got the personality. She does it everywhere. It's not uncommon to see Danielle Collins do what she did the other night. That's who she is and that is her personality and she can deal with it and she doesn't care. So I don't know, good on her.
Yep, very nice. Well, you've brought us to Danielle Collins. We're going to have a look at some of her post-match reaction and then we'll hear from her in the press conference.
I'm going to be out here for 2.5 hours and putting up with all these people. I might as well just take the bigger paycheck, right? And I was super happy to do that. And one of the greatest things about being a professional athlete is the people that don't like you and the people that hate you, they actually pay your bills.
So Danielle Collins, she is exactly as you said. She's quite happy to be the antagonist, and she is seemingly one of those players who kind of uses it as fuel.
Yeah, as I said, that is who she is. Seen her play on tour for many, many years. And look, if we break the match down, the match was actually played in quite good respect. I thought it was a really high quality match. The handshake was lovely. Destiny played great. She played great. It was just the engagement of Danielle with the crowd. And look, don't know, Nick, she gave it a little bit to the crowd at the end of the match and they were booing her. So I don't know. What do you want to, do you know what I mean? Like,
yep.
She's giving it to them. They're booing her. So I guess in some ways, if the crowd are giving it to her and booing her, it's not a bad thing to give it back to them.
Well, there's a part of me thinks too that if she goes a little bit deeper, and we saw her play in the final against Ash Barty and become runner-up that year, but if she goes a little bit deeper here, I wouldn't be surprised if the crowd kind of comes around and moves in behind her to an extent. You know, the lovable rogue, the pantomime villain. This can happen.
Yeah, and look, I don't know. I try and, having been a player myself, I guess my perspective's quite different. And I do like having different personalities shown out on court. And players, we all as humans deal with situations so differently anyway. So, look, I think it was a bit of cheek and tongue. She just, I don't know, gave it back to the crowd. And to be honest, there was part of me that I quite enjoyed just watching it, give it back to the crowd a little bit. As I said, the crowd were doing it back to her. So make it maybe I'm being, sitting on the fence a little bit, but I just think she, deserved the win. The match was played in great respect, and she let the crowd know about it.
Well, I reckon the crowd in the end would have gone home very happy with that experience. That's what it's all about. Yeah. But also, as a viewer watching on TV, it was awesome. It was great entertainment. Begs the question, though, when you were playing, who were the villains?
Yeah, look, I think I grew up maybe in more of an era where it was not like you couldn't do it, but you didn't really show your feelings or express externally your emotion too much. So I think I didn't really play against a heap of villains. Like, obviously they're out there. I'm just trying to think. We spoke on the show yesterday morning just around some of those perhaps, and on the men's side, whether it be Novak or Nick Kyrgios, of course. Like, I don't even know if you'd call them villains. I'm, again, sitting on the fence a bit, but I'm like, let's see their personality.
Well, there's a fine line between villain and showman, isn't
there? Yes, exactly.
And you can be a little bit of both.
Yeah, and look, we probably have been, with Rafa and Roger being the nice guys. Like, it doesn't matter. I mean, you watch a lot of Netflix, I'm sure, or Stan, and you watch shows, you watch movies, and in every show or story, there's a villain, there's a love story.
There's a
hero. So I think in that respect, tennis and sport has to have those stories and those people. So I kind of see it from that perspective and just try and take everyone for who they are.
Yep, well, Danielle Collins, I think, is certainly locked in her role in this drama here at Melbourne Park over the next couple of weeks. Let's have a look at the Emirates flight plan. And, okay, who really catches your eye out of those matches?
Yeah, look, I'm going to go with Svitolina Paolini, actually. Paolini, just goes under the radar so much. And for someone that's made 2 major Grand Slam finals last year, I don't think she gets spoken about enough as such a danger. She's a pocket rocket, she's athletic, she's aggressive. So keep your eye on Paolini for me.
Let's talk a bit of Jannik Sinner, the defending champion. Didn't look to be totally at ease early on. He dropped the first set against Tristan Skulkate, but it wasn't just the fact that he dropped the first set, it was how he dropped the first set. He just didn't look quite right. What did you take from that?
Well, I would tend to agree. I think that Skulkate really came out with everything he had from the very first point. And I actually think it's a really smart move when you are playing someone like Jannik Sinner, who is, the best player in the world and won here before. You have to throw the kitchen sink. So I think that's what Skulkate did. He came out winning a set against Jannik Sinner, which is an incredible effort. I think Jannik was a little bit taken aback. He definitely had to put his foot on the accelerator and he ramped it up. He ramped his, pacer shot at the back of the court up and got the serve going. But I think Skulkate did a really good job.
Is it right to say, and this is about pacing your way through a Grand Slam from round one,
yes,
hopefully the final if you get there. Is it fair to say that you cannot play your best tennis every moment of every match?
Yes, absolutely. And that is why Novak, Rafa and Roger, the amount of times they have won majors and they have managed 2-week slam is incredible. It's when you really, really break it down, it's actually an astonishing feat. So one, you have to match manage. That's within a 5-set match and how you kind of work your way through matches, but then the days off. So it's like day on, day off, how you manage the 2-week slam. So yeah, I think that's, a big plus for Jannik Sinner and he's now becoming one of the best at doing that.
And what about for Tristan Skulkate? That experience of being on Rod Laver Arena for the first time and having that massive crowd behind him and taking a set off the best player in the world. How does he benefit from that?
Oh, it's invaluable. And, for him to be out there against the best player in the world. To play the type of tennis he did and does consistently on tour, I think is, something that he can pocket that experience now, go back to the practice court, work on some things. He's got a great work ethic from WA. Sandgroper works hard, had to get that in there, works hard and just a really good kid. So I really look forward to following his career.
Just a final one on Jannik Sinner before we move on. Is he beatable? Is there something there at the moment suggesting that he's not at his best? He's there to be taken?
Of course, everyone in the draw is beatable. I think someone's going to have to play very, very good tennis for the length of a long match against him. So I think he's the best hard court player going around. I think on this surface, he's going to be extremely tough to beat though. One
of the matches that we can't wait for, if it actually happens, a potential quarterfinal, Minaur and Sinner. So let's focus on Alex Minaur at the moment. And he's moved pretty well through the first couple of rounds. How have you rated his Australian Open so far? Yeah, we'll talk about managing your energy levels, your match time and all of that during a slam. I think Alex is now becoming a pro at it. He has obviously made some quarterfinals of majors. He's gotten to that back end of the tournament. And I think his first couple of rounds have been really good. And it is cliche, Nick, but in tennis, it's match by match. But it's so true when you're talking about Grand Slam tennis. So, yeah, I think Alex has done a wonderful job so far. And I just really hope that he can, keep his body right and keep the crowd going with him and he'll be good. So the next match up against Cerundolo. Yep. And he's a guy who's made a habit out of taking out top 20 players over the last 3 years. I think it's like 10. Yeah. And so this does not faze him, this big occasion, and he'd be gunning for him. Yeah, no, Cerundolo will not be any way, shape or form intimidated by playing Alex or the crowd. He actually, I think, got a walkover in his previous, he played a set in a few games, so he'd be fresh. He's, a typical Argentinian player where he gets a lot of balls back, he makes a lot of balls, he digs deep. But again, when you think about Alex's game, I don't actually think that's going to faze Alex too much. He's going to be up for the fight. He's also going to make a lot of balls, but he's also got the experience. I think he's got a bit more of the X factor now, Alex, with his serve, with a bit more meat behind it. So I think things are looking good for Alex. Let's hope so. Would he like to be challenged? Would it be good for Alex to be challenged at this stage of the tournament? Maybe go to 4 sets, really get taken to the wire. Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing if it happens, but I also think if he goes through in straight sets, that's fantastic too. I think probably you'd prefer to, try and still be challenged, but not cruise through, but get through as comfortably as you can. So, yeah, look, I think Alex will get through this one, and I do think it will be tough. I think he will be challenged and he'll be tested, which will be good for him, but I think he'll get through it. Every day we stand here and we talk about teenagers, seemingly over the last couple of days. Everywhere. And another 19-year-old has bobbed up and taken out Daniel Medvedev. So, Lerner Tien, 5 sets, found a way after really looking like he might be gone in the 4th set. As I said, only 19, and just the self-belief. And where does this come from? What do you think about yourself as a 19-year-old taking out a top seed? Yeah, it's pretty cool though, isn't it? I also did Alex Mickelson the other day, beat James McCabe. This next crop of players coming through, they're good. They're really good players. I think it's going to be a little bit up and down for a lot of them for a few years to come. But I think for, Tien, that's a great win against someone who is so good over 5 sets of tennis, Medvedev. But I'm a bit biased. Lerner Tien is a lefty, American, doesn't have a massive serve, but oh gosh, he uses that lefty serve so well. And he did that against Medvedev. And yeah, they're good. These young kids, they're good. And also, I think they're all pushing each other along, right? Like they see one of their mates doing well and they're like, well, I can do that. And I definitely believe, they all push each other along, and healthy competition is good competition. João Fonseca, we were standing here talking about him a couple of days ago. So he goes out in his next round after causing the upset. Is that a danger now? How do you manage this next, perhaps couple of matches if he does well as a 19-year-old? What does he have to do? Yeah, look, I think you're right. And that's, our colleague Johnny Millman was talking about it around the fact that sometimes you've got to put the handbrake on these young kids a little bit, because they can play great tennis, but can they sustain it, or can they be consistent throughout the tournament or event, as we've been talking about with Grand Slam tennis? So, look, I think you've got to keep the expectation low. We know how good they are, but what can they produce day in, day out? The other disturbing thing, and I don't know whether you've been doing it, but when there's a 19-year-old has a bit of success and you look at his bio and you look at the year that he was born,
no, I don't even go there. I got a big birthday this year, so I don't even go there.
Case, thank you.
Awesome.
And
Thanks,
thank
Nick.
you for your company on the Morning Serve.
Wide World of Sports on YouTube is your home of the tennis this summer.
With highlights of the best matches of the summer of tennis, the on-court interviews and every day with the Morning Serve, you'll be ahead of the game.
So click that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing this summer.